Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Last Wrestling Podcast. Because if I have a wrestling podcast, everybody else in the world does too, and the concept is officially dead. Tonight we're going to be taking a look at All Elite Wrestling, All Out 2020, and I think we're all ready to get all out of 2020 at this point. Quick summary first of the buy-in. Nothing important happened. Yeah, we're calling it a buy-in and we're doing a casino battle royal because Florida is well known for its casino business, I guess. I don't know. I've never actually been to Florida. Maybe they do. Maybe it's like, amusement park, casino, meth lab, just everywhere you see. Moving on now to the main card, the main pay-per-view. And our first match is going to be Dr. Britt Baker, who is a dentist, versus Big Swole in a tooth and nail match. What is a tooth and nail match? I have no idea, but it's hinted that this is going to be a fight at Dr. Britt Baker, who is a dentist's dentist office, and probably her real one. And why that's happening, I'm not entirely sure. Big Swole and Britt Baker have been in a long-running feud where they've basically been in a prank war with each other because Britt Baker wasn't medically cleared to wrestle, and this might be a way of sort of obscuring the fact that she's still not physically at 100%. I understand that. More interesting is what this means for the women's division. This match was originally advertised as being on the buy-in, which is why I watched the buy-in in the first place. But AEW has, and in my opinion rightly so, come under fire recently for kind of sidelining their women's division. Most episodes of Dynamite, you're lucky to get one segment featuring the women, and the entire tag team Deadly Draw tournament was shunted off to YouTube, and when they really could have done it on television, trust me, they had filler they could have cut. And this has caused some outcry. Well, this and the rollout of the AEW Heels community, which I honestly thought was a line of shoes when I first heard about it. Apparently it's a women's-only wrestling community. And a lot of women fans that I've read and heard in the pro wrestling fandom community have basically said AEW hasn't been living up to what they promised when they started the company, which is equality or at least parity between the women and the men. Yeah, that's actually a perfectly good criticism. So the idea of having one of only two women's matches shoved down to the pre-show, that was not acceptable. So I'm actually going to applaud AEW here. And this is what I call the Sonic the Movie rule. When content creators listen to the fans, admit they've screwed up, and fix things, most importantly, fix things, they deserve to be praised for it. Anyway, back to the wrestling. Britt Baker, Big Swole, tooth and nail match. I have no idea what this is, but hey, the women are on the pay-per-view. That's a good thing. Where are the police? Okay, Britt Baker just tried to murder a woman with a cordless power drill, and then attempted to stab someone with a syringe full of Novocaine, which got stabbed into her own leg. What the flying fuck? Okay, there's a reason you do not see people use knives or guns in a wrestling match, even if it's technically within the rules because hardcore nonsense. It's not believable because you know they're not going to kill each other. Okay, the actual match itself, good stuff. Yeah, if you like hardcore matches, this was a really good hardcore match. They did use the environment fairly creatively. And it made Big Swole look like a monster, and it made Britt Baker look like a serial killer. So if that's what you were going for, you got it. Well done. Bad stuff, everything else. We had a multi-camera setup, despite the fact that there was no explanation for why there were multiple camera crews. There was one camera that came with Swole, presumably in a camera truck because we saw the car come up. We should have seen the camera getting out of the car, or from the camera's perspective, getting out of the car, and that would have explained why there's a camera crew there. We could have even had Swole say, hey, get one of those cameras around the back in case she tries to run. 2 seconds of dialogue, and that would have fixed a major problem here. Another question, was there somebody standing behind the camera guy with a ring bell? because the referee, at the beginning and the end of the match, pointed in some random direction and said, "Ring the bell! Ring the bell!" What bell? There was no bell. There's no timekeeper's table in a dentist's office. What? Oh yeah, we also had ominous music for Britt Baker in the face shield that shouldn't have been there. Okay, so, some things I did like. I liked everything with Reba. Reba/Rebel, more fun than Britt Baker, who is a dentist, to me. I like the fact that she was wearing a mask at the beginning to make it look like this is how things normally look when they work. My favorite spot of the match when Swole handed Reba the diploma of Britt Baker, and I hope that wasn't real. Those things are expensive to replace. And said, "Here, hold this for me," and then punches through the diploma, knocking the glass into Reba's face, taking her out of the rest of the match. That was good. The stuff on the truck on the outside, in the dumpster, unnecessary, but I think they felt they had... I think they didn't have enough ideas of what to do in the dentist's office that they felt they needed to pad it out. In the end, Big Swole gets a, I think, submission victory with the laughing gas. So many crimes committed here. Where are the cops? Well, actually, yeah, all things considered, considering you've got a woman with a Black Lives Matter armband, yeah, maybe not a good idea to involve the cops in this. Anyway, Big Swole wins the match, and all in all, it was not good. I like Big Swole. She did, one more positive thing. Big Swole got to show a lot of good character here. I hope this is a jumping off point for her to be a major single star in the women's division. Up next, probably the weakest backstory going into this show, it's Zayangu Bakuzu versus A Boy and His Dinosaur. I still say that's a better name. The story is these two were part of an Atomicos team, the same Atomicos team, and they won an Atomicos match at last week's Dynamite, and that means they get to fight each other on the pay-per-view. On the surface, this is really stupid. A little bit below the surface, I actually like it, because it says that just being on the pay-per-view is A, prestigious enough, and B, results in a big enough paycheck, that wrestlers are willing to fight, and they're willing to work, and they're even willing to team up with people they don't necessarily like to get on the pay-per-view, that in itself is a goal worth accomplishing. I like that. I think that's a good thing, a good story to tell, and hopefully this match will be a lot better than the build. I've said many times on this channel that a well-wrestled match with no story is a bad match, as far as I'm concerned. Now, maybe the fact that this didn't have a story going into it, even though there was a story you could have told, because apparently, Boy and His Dinosaur are the number 5 ranked tag team, and the Bucks are the number 3 ranked tag team. Why did this not get mentioned until the Chiron showed up, until the graphic showed up? I don't know. Should have been. Because sports-like presentation, which should mean something other than we're not WWE. This was a very well-executed match. A lot of the spots were inventive, really looked good. Very snug, very impressive. A lot of holy shit moments, if you will. But in the end, the young Bakuzu hit the double V trigger, which is now called the BTE trigger. Which, okay, fine. Apparently, anytime you hit somebody with your knee now, it's called a trigger. Trigger warning joke somewhere there, I guess? I don't know. To win the match and presumably get promoted or at least knock Jurassic Express out of the tag team top 5 ranking. We'll see how the rankings are updated after the show. One other thing I want to talk about here, who are the heels? I mean, you'd think it'd be the Young Bucks. They've been known to play heel when up against a babyface tag team. And actually, I think that's fairly selfless of them. However, take a look at Master Marco stunned here with the injured leg and the crutch. That didn't stop him from pulling the oldest heel manager trick in the book and tripping up a young Ann Jackson. I have no idea which one that is, and I don't really care. On the ring apron. So, Jurassic Express are the bad guys? No. Don't do that. That is a horrible idea. In short, very good match, very bad storytelling, therefore, pretty bad match. I'm sorry, as good as these guys are, this wasn't good. Speaking of probably not going to be very good, up next is the Casino Battle Royal! Oh, I want to like this show. I want to like this company. I really, really do. Okay, let's talk about the only thing anyone's going to talk about in this match. Unsurprisingly, the guy who draws the Joker is our big debuting former WWE guy, and it's Matt Sydal, formerly known as Evan Airborne. You see here, Matt Sydal in the on top of the turnbuckle, ready to deliver his signature shooting star press. And then everything went wrong! We are taking this frame by freaking frame. Sydal pushes down on the ropes, does the jump to do the backflip for the shooting star. Just as he is starting to push up with his legs, his right leg slips off the turnbuckle. Unfortunately, at this point, he's already made the push-off motion with the left leg, which means, laws of physics being what they are, he's committed. He's in motion. A body in motion stays in motion until acted on by the turnbuckle. And, wow, this was bad. Because of the uneven push-off, as you see here, Sydal goes off completely out of control, and you can see both legs are in different positions. If you're doing shooting star press, the legs, the knees, they should be together, but wow, he goes flying, turning himself in mid-air, and starts to come down. First of all, his right arm, I don't know if he was trying to catch himself or he was just in a bad position, but his arm comes straight down on the top rope. Now, the ropes are steel cables. Yes, they have some give to them. Yes, they have some bounce to them. But he just basically dropped his armpit, essentially, on a slightly wiggly piece of rebar before he comes crashing down, ass and back first. Luckily, the main impact did not appear to be on his head or neck, because that could have paralyzed or killed him. And he did appear to be moving after the match. It looked on first viewing when I first saw it that he did land on his neck, because even though he did hit on his back, he sort of rolled into a position where his head and neck were down on the canvas, and it looked like he was maybe trying to roll through roll through the blow, but the fall, but it looked on the first viewing that he had come down straight on the back of his neck, and that's paralysis time. That's Darren Drozdov territory. Last shot from this incredibly terrifying 3 or 4 seconds. Will Hobbs, as soon as he realizes what's going on, he quickly goes over. He tries to cover it up. He tries to look like he's grabbing a hold or something, but he's clearly checking on Sydal to make sure he's okay. And I haven't checked any news sources because I want to remain spoiler-free for the rest of the show. But it does look to me like Sydal was at least not seriously injured. He was a part of the rest of the match. Didn't go for a second shooting star, and I don't bloody blame him for that. While I don't think this was anybody's fault, if there's a worse way to screw up your televised debut on a national company on pay-per-view, if there's a worse way to mess this up, I don't want to know what that is, because it probably results in somebody losing the use of their limbs. Okay, rest of the match. In the end, can't say it without laughing. The Murder Hawk Monster, Lance Archer, wins the thing, and because he is a solid heel, that makes me think Moxley's retaining, but it could be a lot of fun to see this guy beat the living piss out of MJF, and Wardlow for that matter. Also, the last guy to be eliminated won Eddie Kingston, which is fantastic. I love that AEW seems to be smart enough to get behind Eddie Kingston and at least push him as a top manager, if not actually push him to the moon as a wrestler. A lot of other good spots. A couple of storylines could spin off of this. Jake Hager's Sunny Kiss is something I didn't know I wanted, and I still really don't, but if it's a storyline for Sonny Kiss, I'm okay with that. Darby Allin and Team Taz continues after they put him in a body bag full of thumbtacks that I hope to God were fake thumbtacks, because they were all over the rest of the ring for the rest of the match. A lot of stories could come out of this, so narratively, I think this did a very good job. But the biggest positive about this is the improvement in the storytelling. One, they actually showed us who came out. Every suit was identified, and every suit, all 5 wrestlers were listed. So you knew who was in the match, you knew who came out, you knew what was going on. Also, the Jumbotron, the Titantron, big honkin' clock the entire time. Which means AEW was not cheating on their time limits. That's good. They also clarified that if you go over the top rope and hit the stage, the ramp area, which is level with the apron of the ring, that counts as an elimination. You don't have to go all the way to the floor. Really cool. Oh, speaking of which, because Darby Allin was eliminated in a body bag, you could argue that his feet, his boots, didn't touch the stage. Loophole? No, they didn't go down that cheap route, because that way, the fact that you're wearing boots could mean your feet never touch the floor. Anyway, best casino battle royal they've ever done, and nobody's gonna care because of that Matt Sydal botch. What a shame. And I've talked way too long about this match, so let's just make this quick. Hardy versus Guevara, broken rules match, which seems to be a falls count anywhere, last man standing, non-demoie match, and if Hardy loses, he will leave All Elite Wrestling. And I don't think that necessarily telegraphs the finish. It could be that Hardy's finishing up, you don't know. Or it could be they can't afford him anymore. Let's find out. Well, there's no joke I can make about this, is there? Okay, you've probably seen the news by now. As I always say, this is a live-ish review. That means I'm watching the match for the first time and then commenting on it. So I am spoiler-free. I don't know anything that happened at the show before I watch it. That's very deliberate. Frankly, if I'd known about this, I probably wouldn't be covering this show because, and I believe this is the first time I've ever said this, fuck AEW! Okay, the 2 wrestlers are on this scissor lift. Sammy Guevara spears Hardy off of the scissor lift into a couple of tables that were set up below. They're apparently merchandise tables. By the way, good attention to detail, even if those weren't the merch, if those weren't the handout the free mask tables. It's good that they put that little detail to explain why the tables were there. And they missed. There were 2 tables. They overshot one completely, and Hardy wound up basically smacking the back of his head into the concrete. He is very clearly concussed. He can barely stand. He can barely move. He clearly has no idea where the fuck he is or what the fuck he's doing. And the referee, Aubrey Edwards, is it Edwards or Edwards? Edwards, I believe. Aubrey Edwards throws up the X sign, and they actually call the match. The doctor comes out, and even though this had just been advertised as there must be a winner, and Matt Hardy has to leave AEW if he loses, the referee has to call it off. I believe they were going to try and call this a no contest, and that's what should have been done for the safety of the wrestlers. I don't know who's to blame here, but somebody's to blame here. Up until now, this has been either an accident or Sammy Guevara being green and fucking dangerous and frankly needing to be fired, but what happened next was completely unacceptable. Now, I don't know if this was Hardy insisting that he continue the match, in which case, you're a fucking idiot, grow up. 2, it could have been the doctor saying, I think he's okay to go. I think we as long as we go straight to the finish, we'll be okay. I don't know if it was the referee. I don't know if it was somebody on the headset. I don't know if it was somebody in management. But some idiot made the decision to continue this match. And they went, there was, I think, one bump. There was like a DDT, the softest DDT in the world. There was actually a point that, kind of like when Stone Cold Steve Austin had his neck broken by Owen Hart, there seemed to have been an effort at a world's worst roll-up. even though you can't win the match by roll-up, they had to go to some kind of a big spot where Sammy couldn't answer a 10 count. So Hardy basically gets Sammy in a headlock, drags him down to the scaffold, to the truss of the stage, the main stage, and in clearly what was planned to be the finish, just finger poke of dooms him off into the tables that have been with the crash pad and whatever that had clearly been set up there, and officially Hardy wins the match. That was fucking stupid. Okay, one, if Hardy is as injured as he appears, and he looks like he's really fucking injured, his career might be over. That's not hyperbole. This could be the end of Matt Hardy as a professional wrestler, in which case, he's out of AEW. Pay him the rest of his contract, because you fucked up. Pay him the rest of his contract, let him go, and let Guevara, if you're not going to fire his ass, let him be the guy that, I was the one who finally broke Matt Hardy, I deleted blah, blah, blah. Let him do that. Let that be his, I beat The Rock and Stone Cold in the same night shtick. Fine. Either stick with your stipulation, get rid of Hardy because he can't wrestle anymore, or come up with a way around it. Do a Midnight Rider gimmick. Assuming Matt Hardy comes back to the point he's able to wrestle, have him come back under a mask. Do a Midnight Rider gimmick. He and Jericho would be brilliant at that. Or you could say, since there was no actual referee's 10 count, the match is null and void. It's a no contest. Yeah, it's a cheap cop out finish. Nobody will fucking blame you for that. Oh. I pity the women that have to follow that. Good luck, ladies. All I'm gonna say, bringing in the NWA Women's Champion for this, brilliant idea. Expand, acknowledge the rest of the wrestling world. You're allowed to do that. Good luck following that. Great match. Absolutely fantastic. The outsider versus the fighting champion. The running knee strike to the seated opponent, Tamashi, which means soul in Japanese. Absolutely fantastic finish. I loved it. If I wasn't worried about whether or not Matt Hardy is dead, I'd be praising it for the next hour. Speaking of which, I have checked a couple of news sites. Bleacher Report reporting that Hardy apparently passed concussion protocols before going to the hospital to be evaluated. I'm not entirely sure I believe that, but okay. Just hope he's okay. He's all right. Backstage, we meet up with Kip Sabian and Penelope Ford, who are being interviewed while apparently in the process of getting dressed. Apparently, they are going to get married, and they're going to do the wedding live on Dynamite. And there's going to be a mysterious best man to be announced next week on Dynamite, because, hey, wrestling weddings, when have those ever gone wrong? But the funniest thing, and this gave me a laugh I very much needed. He advertises his Twitch stream, and we get this message has been approved by AEW, by All Elite Wrestling. Wow. Okay. Some people criticize AEW for taking pot shots at WWE, but this is a pot shot you ought to be taking. Apparently, Vince McMahon has decided his wrestlers don't get to earn money on Twitch or Cameo or OnlyFans or whatever, because he owns them. It's not like they're independent contractors or anything. But apparently AEW is making a point of saying, yeah, if you guys want to have a Twitch account, we don't care. Up next, 8-man tag team action as the Dark Order, including the TNT Champion, the Exalted One, Mr. Brody Lee, the former Super Smash Brothers, and Colt Boom Boom Cabana versus the Natural Nightmares and a couple of guys who had nothing else to do tonight. The story here, revenge for Cody. AEW is very good at these 8-man tag team matches, especially having multiple stories going on at once. The main story here was the Dark Order wanted to keep making Colt Cabana look good because they're still in the kill him with kindness phase of the cult/religious indoctrination. And that's where he stuffed it up. Instead of going for the pin as directed by Mr. Brody Lee, Colt Cabana dives off the top rope with a moonsault, misses by a mile, and Dustin Rhodes, in his blue period, rolls him up 1, 2, 3. Other stories, Brandy had her Brandy moment because she's Brandy. She just has to get involved in every match she's at ringside for. And we've got Agent 99 from Get Smart. I mean, some girl whose Dark Order number is 99, whose name I've just forgotten. I feel bad about that. So that's a feud going forward, because you hurt my husband, I'm going to beat you up. Okay, fair enough. Additionally, they seem to be telling a story with Matt Cardona, formerly known as Zack Ryder, that he needs to get his head out of his ass and start actually trying to win matches. At the very least, that was the story JR was telling. Whether or not that's the story AEW is telling remains to be seen. After the match, Mr. Brody Lee gets in Colt Cabana's face for the first time, angry that he screwed up the finish of the match, at least as far as, in the world of kayfabe. And it's Evil Uno who offers him a hand of friendship. Now, this is interesting. This is the first time we've ever seen Evil Uno go against his beloved Exalted One. So I'm curious. They're doing so well with this Dark Order. It ain't the Crucible, but it's really good. And I just want to see where they're going with this. After the match, we learn that by virtue of this victory, Dustin Rhodes will challenge Mr. Brody Lee for the TNT Championship, and I loved Dustin's reaction to learning that news, and he just gets really pumped up for what may be his last chance to be a champion. Speaking of championships, the second championship match of the night, Kenny Omega and Hangman Adam Page defend the AEW World's Tag Team titles against FTR. And I am predicting a title change, whether it's going to be a clean title change or because some kind of shenanigans with Hangman Page. I don't know. Let's find out together. I like being right. Ladies and gentlemen, we have new AEW World's Tag Team Champions, FTR. And, okay, two thoughts on this match. One, it's really good to remember how good these guys are. And that was what this entire match was. It was FTR pulling every tag team trick in the book, except the only major tag team thing they didn't do, I think, was the Doomsday Device, and that's because they were doing the Steiner Brothers Bulldog thing. Very, very good. This was a showcase match for FTR, and basically, again, within the world of kayfabe, Omega and Page just couldn't keep up with them. And then the plot happened. After the match, first of all, a little injury to insult, as FTR leave Hangman Adam Page with a complimentary beer-branded beer. Seriously, you've got a couple of beer-swilling badass wrestlers and you couldn't get a sponsorship from anybody for that? Seriously? Then more plot happens as Kenny Omega is officially done with Hangman Page's shit and decides, I'm out of here. And he grabs it. He doesn't even bother to go back to the locker room and grab his stuff. He just bolts for the car, and presumably he'll change or take a shower at the hotel or something. And even the Young Bucks can't talk him into staying. So it's Hangman Page is out of the Elite. Omega, while he still wants to be friends with the Young Bucks, he appears to be on his own at the moment. The entire Elite seems to have broken down at this point, and that's a major story advancement for all Elite wrestling. And just for the record, that's all Thought 1. Thought 2, man, this dragged on a bit. We've still got an hour left in the show for the Mimosa Mayhem match in the main event, and this is going to wind up being like a 4-hour something show. They did not need to be padding this match. They could have cut a good 5 minutes of this and told a nice tight story. It's another case of AEW badly needing an editor. Coming up next, it is time for the Mimosa Mayhem match. One guy got splashed with orange juice, another guy got waterboarded with champagne, so we're going to mix orange juice and champagne together and make a giant pool of mimosa to throw somebody in. Okay, one thing I hate about this, why the pinfall or submission stipulation? It's been mentioned 2 or 3 times now that you can win this match by pinfall, submission, or throwing your opponent into the pool of orange juice. Well, why? Seriously, if you're going through all the trouble of making this giant pool of mimosa to throw somebody in, why bother even having the pinfall or submission stipulation be an option? Maybe that'll play into something, maybe it won't. At this point, I'm getting tired, and I've got an hour left on the... Yeah, I've got an hour left. Oh, God, I've got an hour left on this show, don't I? Yeah, a little under an hour, about 50 minutes left on this show. 2 matches to go. Wish me luck. Before the match, we get a long video package and a Chris Jericho interview to give them time to set up the ring, and I love the design of these pools. You get some weapons to play with, you get a couple of obvious little pools full of what I'm assuming is orange juice, and maybe actual mimosa. Who knows? Maybe orange water for all I know. But it looked real enough to me, so well done. As for the match itself, down goes Jericho! Down goes Jericho! TYT reference on Last Wrestling Podcast. I am really tired right now. Blech. This was a fun match. This was not supposed to be a technical classic. And by the way, I apologize to whoever designed the match with the pinfall and submission option, because they were actually able to put in some decent drama there. Right at the start of the match, Orange Cassidy refuses to put his hands in his pocket, charges at Jericho, boom, code breaker, 1, 2, this could have been a very short match. I'm almost regretting that they didn't do that, but the shot of Jericho going into the orange juice, way too much fun. A lot of really good, fairly dramatic, almost throwing them into the orange juice, into the pool spots, a lot of sort of teetering on the edge, and Orange Cassidy is very, very good at that sort of physical body language storytelling that comes from his years as Fire Ant in Chikara. By the way, I am not going to be covering for Chikara Secret Identities anymore. Orange Cassidy used to be Fire Ant. He used to be the hot property, and now he's living up to that nickname. He is a hot property for AEW. Very good match. Not a technical classic, but frankly, after the tag team match, I didn't want a technical classic. I wanted somebody to get thrown into some orange juice, and that's what happened. I hope that was at least expired orange juice that was going to be thrown out anyway, because otherwise that is a huge waste. Anyway, time for the main event. Maxwell Jacob Friedman, doing his politician cosplay, challenges Jon Moxley for the AEW World Championship. If Jon Moxley uses the paradigm shift, the double underhook DDT, he will be disqualified and will lose the AEW World Championship. Other than that, it is a standard rules professional wrestling match. As much as I like MJF as a heel, he's so very good at what he does, but I don't think it's time to make him the world's champion yet. There's a possibility that they do something to keep his unpinned, unsubmitted streak intact. MJF gets himself disqualified, and Moxley retains the title that way. There are ways they could get out of this, but I think it might be time to feed the streak of MJF, of Snooty Pants Fun Persnickety Bitch, to Jon Moxley, the Death Rider. Yay, cheating! Okay, wow, that was a star-making match for MJF, who loses his undefeated streak by every conceivable definition after Jon Moxley, while the referee's back is turned thanks to Wardlow, hits the paradigm shift for the 1-2-3 after a bloody match. And I mean, this was kind of nasty. But a very good match, contrasting styles, came down to who wrestled their match, who outsmarted the other, and all of that. But in the end, Jon Moxley, the AEW World Cheating Champion. Please, 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 please tell me Jon Moxley and MJF are going to have a rematch, because MJF is going to point to the footage and say, he cheated before I could cheat, he cheated. Well, that's probably not what's going to happen, but at this point I'm too tired to care. Still, very, very good match. Final thoughts. And I really only have one final thought coming out of this show. A good to very good show that was dragged down into the gutter by some of the most irresponsible bullshit I've ever seen outside of WWE, and they have a habit of killing their wrestlers. So, Yeah, that's saying something. The Matt Hardy thing just that overrides my entertainment. That man's safety and the fact that that match was allowed to continue in any form, that that overrules whatever entertainment value I got out of this show. So while most of the matches were good, some went on longer than they probably should have, and this is normally I would point out now that being more than 3 hours, this would lose it at least a half a letter grade, but that is not applicable at this time because due to their treatment of Matt Hardy, due to the fact that they seem to be kind of mixing up their stories a little bit, final grade for AEW All Out, F. Absolutely inexcusable behavior, and frankly, I hope Matt sues them. Good night.